feel as if it's a withering, dying flame through much of the greatest challenge in your life. But as long as you make the active decision to maintain and to hold on to some inkling of that fire, it can be grown. It can be grown to such heights that you may never have thought possible. I was 18 years old. I was a senior in high school, and I'd just received an acceptance letter to my dream college. I had my whole future laid out before me. I thought that everything I was supposed to do in life was perfectly lined up and lay before me. And I'm sure, as everybody listening knows, you know that excitement in being a senior in high school, feeling like you're finally moving on, like you have your whole life ahead of you, feeling like you finally have everything kind of understood and figured out, even though many of us know that couldn't be further from the truth. That is how I felt. I thought my life was totally put together and totally perfectly laid out. Yet here I am, sitting in this doctor's office at Ohio State, waiting for news that I believe I already knew in my heart to be true, but I was too terrified to possibly accept. And that doctor came in, and in the span of about 3 minutes, he told me I was not going to be going to school next year. And in fact, I was instead going to spend my time undergoing a brutal regimen of chemotherapy, where I would be actively receiving drugs 21 days a month, every single week, sometimes continuous IV infusions for 5 days in a row. He told me 3 months from the date we were sitting in that room, I would be receiving an amputation of my right leg, regardless of how effective the chemo worked. And he told me all those dreams, all those hopes, all those aspirations I had for life were going to have to be put on hold and may never even be realized at all. And as I've said many times on this platform, hearing those words didn't make me sad. They didn't make me angry. They didn't make me upset. They left me completely feeling devoid of emotion, with nothing left to hold on to, not understanding how this could possibly even remotely reflect the reality in which I now lived. And just a short week after I was in that office hearing those words, I went into surgery to have my port placed and woke up to hearing the sound of that pump, the whirring of that pump, which if you've ever sat in that chair, you know that sound too well. I heard the whirring of that pump and looked down to see chemotherapy already being pumped into my veins. The first encounter I would have with that toxic malice. And I don't think I really thought about it too much at the time, because I was really just so focused on how do I get through this? How do I make it through this? How do I get back to where I want to be in life? I wasn't really focusing enough on that individual moment. But that chemotherapy hit me hard, and it hit me quick. And one thing most people don't realize if you haven't gone through chemo is that on the days you're actually sitting in the chair getting the chemo, those tend to be the days that you're actually feeling better than not. Because those are the days where your body has recovered enough to be able to withstand another beating from those toxic drugs. It's usually in the days following that you experience your very lowest of lows, where your body is totally beat down. For me, I had a number of symptoms I faced. I had the obvious ones that we know, the hair loss, the messed up fingernails, the skin changes, the weird taste, the nausea. But what I didn't expect to hit quite so intensely was the fatigue. The constant feeling as if it were the world's most monumental task just to be able to stand up out of a chair. And this was compounded by the fact that I was only traveling on crutches at this point. Then there were the effects on my GI tract. The doxorubicin specifically was crushing my ability to take in and digest and process food. It left bleeding scars in my mouth, down my throat, in my stomach, all the way through my intestines, of which I still have those scars today. These scars would get so bad, these open wounds rather, would get so bad that I would lose the ability to eat, lose the ability to drink, and even lose the ability to talk due to the pain. There were many times throughout this process of chemo where I was taken up to the emergency room at Nationwide Children's so that they could hydrate me, put IV fluids in me, sometimes put IV nutrition in me, just to keep my body going because my GI tract had failed to such a capacity. They put me on heavy-duty painkillers to be able to manage the pain of these wounds. And not just the pain of the wounds, but the pain that rests deep in your bones as you take the new last injections, that forces your bone marrow to expand at alarming rates and put pressure on the inside of your bones that signals pain receptors. Something is quite very wrong in your body. I remember the mornings I would wake up feeling as if sleep had been a chore, with my head ringing, my brain foggy, staring listlessly into the space before me, wondering what I was even to do with the day that lay before me. I remember the moments in the hospital, being cut into time and again, whether for ports or for PICC line placement or to take cultures of wounds, to get ultrasounds of my bleeding GI tract, MRIs, CAT scans, PET scans, constantly assessing both the progress of the cancer and the dangers of the treatment. It becomes very easy in this time to get into a headspace where you just sit back, where you just start letting things happen to you, because your will has grown so defeated, not weak, but defeated, that all you can do is accept the punishment that ensues. A punishment that maybe you never did anything to deserve, maybe you don't have any reason or explanation for, but one that you're enduring nonetheless. And in those moments, the thoughts start creeping into your mind. Is this even worth it? At what point does this so-called treatment remove me from my own humanity to such a degree that I'd rather take my chances with the cancer? And to somebody who may not have experienced events like this, that I can see how that would be a shocking thought to face. But for those who have sat in that chair or another chair like it, which so many who have come on this podcast have, then you know very real and very intimately and very deeply that there are fates worse than death. And this progressive loss of humanity, this consumption of your own spirit, your own fire, your own drive, is certainly one of those fates. But there's one antidote. There's one avenue through which you can travel. In these moments where you feel as if death and darkness would be the far superior option, there is one light you can look to that will give you that drive, that path, that reason to keep taking steps forward, even if you've had your limbs cut off to this disease. There's one light that burns so brightly and can fill you with such depth of humanity, can restore that connection to who you are and who you were designed to be so intensely, that it is the one thing that can keep you moving forward in these most harrowing of times. And that one thing, which Austin and I have both found in our own journeys, is that passion. As we've discussed in previous episodes, that passion is the fire of your heart, the ignition of your spirit and your soul, the living God that rests within your own spirit, your own vessel. It's the peace that brings consciousness to life, extends us beyond just simple mortal beings. It's that peace that allows us to have this connected consciousness that rests not just within ourselves, but within everyone we encounter. This passion can burn with an unbridled fire, and it can be fueled by the human emotion you experience in these times. And it helps you to slip free from that numbing feeling in which you face. It helps you to build and construct purpose around your life, a purpose so strong and resolute that not even the greatest sufferings in life may break you. And ultimately that extends to the culture around you, how you influence those with whom you interact on a daily basis. And it's this passion, this fire that you hold within you. It may just start as a spark. It may feel as if it's a withering, dying flame through much of the greatest challenge in your life. But as long as you make the active decision to maintain and to hold on to some inkling of that fire, it can be grown. It can be grown to such heights that you may never have thought possible. This is where the process of being impossible starts.